We weren't sure if my dad was even gonna make it.
I need you to breathe into this as deeply as you can. You're turning blue.
I was mad at them. I did not want to talk to them.
I need you to send angels to get rid of this.
Grief comes in waves.
We were ecstatic. We're finally pregnant. Amelia's born. We could tell something was wrong.
She was not gaining weight. Food hurt her.
We left the Mayo Clinic. She started to grow.
Do you want to go to heaven and help the Lord pick out another baby for us?
This family story is really God's hand through the tough times.
We're on the other side. We've come through. Is God going to give us more? He calls our family to hard things. He might call us to more that's hard. These are real people. These are real stories. This is all true. We don't do fake. We had 2 years of unexplained infertility. People in my family make babies like rabbits. Something about that didn't work for me. They never figured it out.
Madeline finally got pregnant with the help of IVF. We were ecstatic. We're finally pregnant. This is great. She's born very small, 5 pounds, 1 ounce. Full term, but 5 pounds, 1 ounce.
Amelia,
Amelia's born, and almost right off the bat, we could tell something was wrong.
pregnancy was totally fine. No complications whatsoever. She was really little when she was born, but I'm not the biggest person. Brian's big. I'm kind of little. She was really little.
I had this uneasy feeling that the doctor, immediately upon seeing Amelia and how small she was and developmental problems, something's gone wrong.
She was really lethargic in an unnatural way, and I was feeding her almost literally around the clock. I would sleep for 30 minutes, wake up and try to get her to feed, and she was not gaining weight the way that she should. We end up, when she's 2 months old, in the hospital because she can't take food directly, swallow it, it's not working. There was something wrong with that mechanism for her.
She was drinking the formula straight into her lungs. I mean, it was horrifying. The radiologist just turned sheet white and couldn't believe it and said from now on she can never be fed through a bottle until we get this fixed.
She had a tube that we put in her nose and went down into her tummy, and we could just put food in a syringe and put it straight into her stomach. So she gained some weight, but she was getting really violently sick every time we'd feed her. Food hurt her, and we couldn't figure it out, and no doctors could figure it out. That was the first of a number of hospital stays where we were trying to figure out what was going on with our girl. We ended up at one point when she was 8 months old in the hospital for a 21-day hospital stay where they ran every test trying to figure out what on earth was wrong with her because she was frighteningly lethargic. I had saved her life a couple of times by that point. When she was 10 months old, something that never showed up again ever on any test showed that she might have a problem metabolizing fat.
When we hear metabolic disorder, we think of somebody who can't gain weight or can't lose weight. This is not that. This is completely different. This is a problem at the cellular level where she was not able to process fat into energy.
But it would explain why she was getting sick at every feeding. We took her off everything except essential fatty acids. She got much better. We end up with this metabolic geneticist at the Mayo Clinic he looked like Santa Claus.
Brilliant person who tested her for dozens of computer screens worth of possible disorders.
He was great, and he said, I suspect that she has a fat metabolism disorder, meaning her body can't metabolize fat. We're in a field of medicine where not everything has a name. He tested her for every known fat metabolism disorder. He tested her for a bunch of other things. All the tests came back negative. And so we thought, well, yay, you're brilliant, but it's just a mistake and she's gonna be fine. And he said, I hope that's the case. I don't think that's the case. I think she has one that just hasn't been codified in the medical literature yet. If that's the case, I need you to know 2 things. He said, if I'm right, metabolic disorders, they're always terminal. And kids with metabolic disorders, when they start to go down, they go down really fast.
We left the Mayo Clinic after the first visit on a funky diet of really broken down foods and formulas that no one's ever heard of, pumping her full of vitamins and enzymes and CoQ10 and things like that, feeding her through a port in her side. She was gaining weight. She started to grow.
We were ready to have a second child. After we had Amelia, we didn't know at the time if what she had was genetic or not. There are many children who need to be adopted. So we chose to go the adoption route for our second child.
I was excited.
Anna is 17. We adopted her at birth from West Virginia.
They never really told me I was adopted exactly. It was just kind of something I always knew. We talked about it a lot in our family, so it was never like a, oh, like surprise moment. It was just, I always knew. When I was younger, it was kind of harder for me to accept that like I was adopted, that I was technically given up. I'm very grateful now for my parents and the opportunity, so.
We adopt Mariana, and it's 4 months later. Madeline comes in with a pregnancy test, her hands are shaking, and it's positive. Well, I'm feeding Mariana a bottle, and Madeline comes out with a pregnancy test.
I'm glad you're sitting down.
And I was thrilled, but I thought, this doesn't happen for us. This is not our deal. Mm-mm. This can't be possible. This is incredible. She goes to the doctor, and it's confirmed. We had Mariana, and then almost exactly a year later, Brent's born.
I'm Brent Robinson. I'm going into my junior year of high school. I play tennis, so we'll be doing speech and debate this year. I greatly enjoy looking into apologetics.
Seeing Brent in the womb sucking his thumb was huge because Amelia had never been able to do that.
She had never been able to
She
swallow
could
right.
never do that right. There were all kinds of signs from God that this was going to be a healthy child and this was going to work out great. But that was one where I remember both of us saw that on the screen. This is a great sign. This is really exciting. It's a big deal.
I have been blessed with two phenomenal parents who deeply care about us.
Cutest thing you'd ever seen, because she had curly hair like Shirley Temple. But before her curls grew in, she was this bald little baby with these glasses. She was like a Chicken Little, you know, just the cutest little thing. And had a great smile, and eventually grew into a child with a wonderful belly laugh and a sweet disposition. Very smart. She had remarkable receptive language, so she understood far beyond her age, but she only had about 6 words ever in her life, and they were hard to come by for her. She would do 100 sit-ups in a row, which physiologically you shouldn't be able to do at the age that she was doing them, but she was such a fighter you'd have to stop her in physical therapy from doing more so she wouldn't hurt herself. She had gone back to the Mayo Clinic at some point in there. He continued to say, I'm glad that she's doing better. I'm not sure he thought she was going to live to be a year old. Most metabolic kids, they don't live past 18 months to 2 years.
A little after she turned 4 years old, she started to lose weight again.
I thought she's losing a lot of baby weight. Kids around 3.5 and 4 years old, they tend to lose baby weight. That's around when I did. All of her therapy was making her tired faster, and I just didn't notice it. I just thought, I noticed it, but I didn't attribute something negative to it. When she was just shy of 4 years and 4 months, there was a day when she lost control of her bowels.
Madeline had Amelia out at a beautiful resort. She called me and said, there's something really wrong. Every time we feed her through her port, it comes out in her diaper within a few minutes. This is just a disaster.
I just knew. I didn't think we were going to outlive her. So I have no, other than the Holy Spirit speaking into my spirit and letting me know she's not here on earth that much longer. Enjoy her, because she's going to be home with Jesus soon. I called our beloved GI, and he was wonderful. I said, Jack, here's what I'm seeing. Here's what's been going on with her. Can you tell me anything that I'm telling you that tells you anything other than the fact that she's dying? And he didn't want to tell me, but he eventually said, no, I can't. That's a sign.
I dropped everything at work, took off. We then decided instead of going straight home, we would go by church because we had Amelia in it was called the co-op program. The teachers there had been amazing.
She had sweet friends in that class, and we took her there to say goodbye. And then we went home, and we stayed at home. It wasn't going to let her die in a hospital. She'd had enough of hospitals when she was younger. And Brian felt the same way.
We had just, a ton of visitors coming in for that last week.
When Amelia would get tired, she would let us know just with a facial expression, and we would go carry her off to her room, and she would take a nap. And then on April 10th, she let us know that she was ready to go rest by herself in her bed. And we took her in her bed. And a little while later, I went to check on her, and she had already gone to Jesus. Sorry.
There had been a bird sitting in a tree right outside the window of her bedroom that entire week. It was not in a nest. We opened the blinds. to let the light in after she had died, and the bird's gone. It was just an interesting symbol to us. She's not here anymore. She's much better off. At her memorial service, the pastor who gave the message was amazing and did a great job. And he said, when somebody dies, we're not sad that they're gone. We're sad that they're not gone inside of us. I thought that was dead on accurate. We're not sad she's gone because we know where she is, and we as Christians really believe that. But she's still, still part of us and still part of our lives, and we miss her terribly.
In the days that she was dying, she couldn't talk. She could just make sounds. I wasn't gonna have an empty bedroom in our house. I couldn't not have another child. And so I remember asking Amelia, do you want to go to heaven and help the Lord pick out another baby for us? And it just made her so happy. Every time she would be so weak and so weak and so weak, and I would ask her that the last several days of her life, and she would light up like a Christmas tree. A year and 2 weeks after she went home to be with Jesus, our Blake was born.
I'm so grateful I'm adopted. I found out as soon as I can remember. It's not like they were ever holding anything back from me. It's amazing. I was adopted into a great home, 2 parents, which not a lot of kids can have.
For as far as I can remember, he's always been in my life because I've just grown up with them. I've grown up with an older sister, and I've just had a younger brother. They're blood relatives to me.
95% of people who outlive couples who outlive a child end up divorced. And I think where the struggle comes from for a lot of couples is grief comes in waves, but it doesn't come in waves the same way at the same time to both parents. It can be the husband or it can be the wife, but one of them is in a really deep part of the grief, and the other one is kind of fine. The other one's able to smile and talk about things that don't have to do with that child, and the other one's able to go off and do other activities. And so often the one who's in the deepest parts of grief at that moment is going, you didn't really love her, you didn't really love him. And it gets accusatory, and it's awful, and it's toxic, and it's terrible, and it's a part of this sinfulness in our broken world. Like today, I've cried talking about her. There are times when I can talk about her and not even a hint of a tear comes to my eye. That is perfectly fine. I don't love her any less on the days when I don't cry over her. I don't love her any more on the days when I do cry over her. There's just that real life experience with grief, and you have these ups and downs, and Brian and I call them now grief swoons.
She suffered through all of these terrible problems better than anybody else I can imagine, and I didn't want part of her legacy to be that once she died, everybody else fell apart, and that faith that they supposedly had was totally meaningless and didn't help them at all.
We're not even just going to be 2 adults living in the same household. We're married, we are joined, God joined us in union. We are going to be still a loving married couple, and we will parent the other children that God has for us now and any coming in the future. So it was very important to us that our marriage would stay strong.
It was something Madeline and I navigated together, which was amazing. We talked about it a lot, constantly asking each other how we were doing, talking through whatever our emotions were. That whole ordeal strengthened our faith. I know it did for Madeline, I know it did for me.
One day when Blake wasn't born yet, so it was the first year or so after Amelia died, I was crying so hard, I was dry heaving and I was sobbing, and I absolutely felt what I understood to be the Lord Jesus' hand stroking my hair and saying into my spirit, not out loud, but into my spirit, I know you love her. I know you miss her. I love her more than you. And I know that's hard for you to understand. And she is healthy, and she is happy, and she is with me, and I will never leave you.
This family's story is really God's hand through the tough times.
We weren't sure if my dad was even gonna make it.
I need you to breathe into this as deeply as you can. You're turning blue.
It was very disheartening.
Do you have a living will?
And there was one point where he was on the verge of death.
They wouldn't let me in.
I need help. I need you to send angels to my hospital room to get rid of this.
He said, I don't really believe in God.
I was mad at them. I did not want to talk to them.
We have walked quite a bit of hard together.
The most loving parents I can ever imagine. An amazing dynamic between both of them. They both understand their roles in the family according to the Bible, and they live it out to their fullest.
My dad, he's very funny. He's more relaxed, a goofball. He makes jokes all the time. He's a very good example of what like a man should look like.
I have an amazing relationship with him. We'll joke around, but we're serious when we need to. We'll have deep conversations.
He's always cracking jokes. He always comes to my sports games. Same with my mom. I don't think she's ever missed one.
The finest man I know. See, I knew I was gonna cry. We have walked quite a bit of hard together, and he is a rock, and he puts up with me, which I appreciate. Seems to like me still after all these years, which I really appreciate.
She's very loving. She's a very godly woman, and she's a really good example to me of like how I should be.
She is not nice, she is kind, so it's not a front. She truly cares about everybody. She'll also give it to you straight on any issue you're having and will help you get through it.
Best person I've ever met. She's got an incredible capacity to love other people. She's changed my life forever for the better. And I think that's probably true of almost everybody she meets.
When we got married, he made number 54 in just the smaller part of my extended family, and I made number 10 in his entire family.
My entire family. Born in right outside Denver, Colorado, when my dad was in the Air Force. My mom and dad both grew up in small towns in Oklahoma, but he joined the Air Force about the age of 2. They moved back to Oklahoma City. I grew up in Oklahoma City up through the end of high school. I'm one of the few people who decided in high school what he wanted to do with his life. My dad's a trial lawyer, and so I grew up watching him, listening to him talk about his cases, sometimes going to court with him, seeing him do his thing. But I hadn't really decided I wanted to be a lawyer. I got into debate in high school. My freshman year in high school, I joined the debate team. My partner and I took second place in our first tournament, and it just kind of opened up a whole door for me. And that changed everything. All of a sudden, I had a plan for life. I wanted to major in political science. I wanted to be a lawyer.
I'm the youngest of 3. I have 2 older brothers. Really just a happy, healthy home. I had wonderful parents who were married until my dad died 4 years ago. I was very fortunate to have an example of a godly marriage and a happy home. We enjoyed each other. So I grew up in a really happy place, a smallish home, and we had everything that we needed. We didn't spend money on things. My parents were great about spending money on experiences, so we traveled quite a bit. My dad had been a fundraising consultant for nonprofits forever and ever and ever, so I'd grown up in the nonprofit world.
My faith walk really kicked into overdrive when I met Madeline, when we started dating. She had a very strong faith. I knew that right off the bat. I could tell that immediately.
Grew up going to church. I don't remember not knowing the Lord. I've always been in church, but we took our faith seriously. It wasn't just for show that we went to church. So we talked about things of the faith in our home, and we read our Bibles. It was something we took seriously, and we meant to apply what we said we believed into our everyday life.
My home life was great. My parents were great. They were married more than 50 years. We were more what I would call holiday Christians. We regularly prayed over meals. We would talk about faith issues every now and then, and we went to church every now and then, but it wasn't a major focus. Growing up, I had a very shallow faith. If anyone asked me or really pressed me, I would have said I believed in God, but it wasn't real. There wasn't much of a relationship there. There were things I saw, a couple of tragedies that really hit me hard when I was growing up that I don't know if they destroyed my faith, but they sure weakened them. I just kind of drifted farther and farther away. I don't think I ever would have called myself an atheist or an agnostic. I was probably pretty close. I was definitely lost and didn't even know it. And then I met Madeline.
He is a lawyer, and he was working at a law firm. He just knew some of the people that I knew. So we had those mutual friends, and then the Lord wrote the story from there.
We hit it off immediately. We had a lot of things in common. We had a lot of fun on our early dates. Something wasn't computing with me because she's really smart and she's got this strong faith.
I went to Vanderbilt. I double majored in French and political science, and I minored in linguistics. I loved it. If I could have had a triple major, I would have also majored in linguistics. And I went and got into fundraising because fundraising is really just telling stories. And when you believe in a cause, it's just telling a story.
Back then, those two things just didn't go together. I had gone through years and years of school with professors who put up this false conflict between religion and reason, faith and facts. I get to know her better, and it didn't take long for me to start asking some of these questions that I'd had. How do you square things that science is telling us versus what we read in the Bible? The home run question for me was the tragedies I'm seeing with some of my friends growing up, the theodicy type questions, really looking for answers. I really want her thoughts. I really want to know why it is she believes, even though she knows these questions are out there. I never asked her a question she had not thought of before. It was refreshing because there were times when she didn't have the answers. She freely admitted there are going to be certain things that happen in this world. We're going to have certain questions that we may never get answered here, and I'm okay with that. When I was 29 years old, we were engaged, about to be married, and I definitely remember surrendering and accepting Jesus as my Lord and Savior. He's the only thing that can save me. Our neighbor's an ER doctor, and he came over late one night and heard my breathing. He drove me to an ER in the middle of the night. I get in there, the first thing that a nurse says to me is, "Do you have a living will?" She puts a big oxygen mask on me, ties it tight, and says, "I need you to breathe into this as deeply as you can. You're turning blue." I don't remember much for the next week. There were days on end when I didn't see a doctor. It was very bizarre. Nurses would come in and check on me. I would get food. Didn't seem to be a plan.
It didn't matter that I wasn't sick. I could test negative 37 times. They wouldn't let me in.
I had no visitors for 16 days. I was in the fraction of 1% of people who got just a horrific case of COVID that then turned into COVID double pneumonia.
And they're talking to him about putting an event. And I knew enough to say no, but I'm having to track people down because they won't let me go there to tell them, you may not put him on an event. I don't approve of that, and he can't make his own decisions right now because he can't even, he doesn't remember anything about that first
I
week.
was completely out of it. She said, "I never ask you to do something for me, but I'm asking you to do this. You need to ask for a transfer." So I asked for a transfer, which set off all kinds of alarm bells at the hospital where I was. The next day, I saw 5 doctors before noon. All of a sudden, I'm getting all this attention. All of a sudden, I've got a plan. But my lungs were in terrible shape. They had really suffered badly. My left lung partially collapsed, and they had to put in a chest tube.
The day that I was going to be allowed to go, finally, there was somebody who shouldn't practice medicine who put a chest tube in to solve his collapsed lung. And it was completely medically the wrong way to do it.
It was a really hard situation. We weren't sure if my dad was even gonna make it. Every day, like after school, I remember asking my mom, like, "Hey, how's dad? Like, is there any update? Is there anything going on?" And most of the time she didn't know or wouldn't be anything good, so she wouldn't want to tell us.
She told us the information, but she acted like it wasn't that bad, which I think was the right decision.
My mom didn't want to give all the kids in the house the information because it was very disheartening. And there was one point where he was on the verge of death.
I tell them what they needed to know. There were a few times I hung up the phone with him, and I thought I might never talk to him again on this side of heaven.
I started doing really bad in school. I wasn't able to focus. I was really stressed out all the time, just worrying about my dad, like how he was gonna be, if he was gonna be okay.
I felt like I was constantly battling fear. This was bizarre, and it can be easy to be discouraged, and so I felt like that's the way the enemy was getting at me, was, "You're not getting out. Look at what you can't do. This is pathetic. Your body's just destroyed. You're not getting any better." And so these were the tapes playing in my head. I was in bed in the middle of the night, but it's as if I was looking at myself. and there was a very distinct black cloud type image over my hospital bed. It's kind of the outline of a face glaring down at me. It's almost like that was the enemy's, that was his haymaker.
Last ditch effort.
Yeah, he sees me improving, he sees my lungs getting better, he sees me on my way home, and he knows once I'm home, I'm going to be praising the Father for healing me and getting me out of the hospital. This is my last shot to take this guy out. This is my last shot to keep him on the sidelines. So I'm praying against it. I'm praying to God, in the name of Jesus Christ, get this spirit out of my hospital room. And it wasn't working. My prayers by themselves were not working. This thing was getting closer to me. Then I prayed to God. I said, I need help. I need you to send angels to my hospital room to get rid of this.
I didn't have a clear vision at the beginning that he was going to be fine. One day when I was walking our dog we had at the time and praying, I had this vision of him in his hospital bed with these angels that were surrounding his bed, only their backs were to him because their shields were out because they were not going to let anything get to him.
This thing kind of collapsed out of nothing and disappeared out the window, through the glass window. This had never happened to me before. It's never happened to me since. I could draw a picture of it. It's just clear in my mind what I saw. That was the last time I remember feeling like I was getting attacked. Like I said, that was very close to when I went home for good.
The last time they saw him, he went in, this strapping big man.
196 pounds.
He comes out, his hair's falling out. He's got this
159.
massive rash on his back. He's lost 37 pounds. Can't walk across the room, can't come up the stairs, can't do anything, is in bed all day. It was after that when they realized he could have died.
But once he came back and I saw him, that's when I knew, like, it was pretty bad.
My left lung collapsed again, so I had to go back in the hospital for another 7 days. I do various follow-ups with pulmonologists because I still had these things. They're basically blisters on my lungs. And if any of them popped, I'm right back in the hospital with a collapsed lung. The doctors in the hospital said, we can't treat these. We cannot heal these. There's a pocket of air in your left lung that we can't reach with one of these chest tubes. Either you get a miracle that heals your lungs, or you're going to have this life-altering surgery. The prayer was that God would heal me. We go for these weekly checkups with a pulmonologist with a chest x-ray, and each and every time he says, you're getting better, things are stabilizing, and then about 3 weeks after I'm home from the hospital for good, he takes out the last of the chest tubes because these blisters had started to go away, had started to heal, and this mysterious pocket of air that they couldn't reach with a chest tube had disappeared. You read about the miracles and the miraculous healings in the Bible. I hear Christians every now and then, serious Christians, say, well, why don't we see those things anymore? Why don't we hear those stories anymore? Like, we've got one.
I knew through the whole situation that the Lord was close at hand. What he kept telling me the whole time when I would pray was, trust me.
During my dad's illness, I didn't believe in God at the time. After he came back home from the hospital and he was talking about how he was just so grateful to God for everything that he had come through it, I was so confused because I know that you're good now, but I would still be mad for having to go through that. So even after my dad was healed, I was still not a Christian, even though I had seen him get healed.
We were at church and he said, like, I don't really believe in God. She was like, well, because, why would God let our little sister die? I was just telling her God has a plan for everything, and maybe if Amelia didn't die, then I wouldn't have been brought into the family after.
We hit a rocky patch with our daughter. She got away from her faith for a few years and made some bad choices.
In order to save her life, we had to make a decision.
We have no choice.
We don't have a choice.
Getting into not so great things.
Downward spiral.
Smoking or like getting into bad things.
Bad choice after bad choice. She had created a double life.
I was actually kind of shunned by her.
I was mad at them. I did not want to talk to them.
I'm an adopted child, abandoned by my birth mother, and then you abandoned me.
It's very tough to think about the ways that I hurt my family and hurt myself.
To know Jesus as your Savior, but also as your friend.
This family story is really God's hand through the tough times.
In middle school, I didn't have a lot of friends. I was kind of looked down upon and bullied a lot. Once I got to high school, I started making more friends. A lot of people started to like me more. I was in a public high school, and a lot of the things that my friends at the time were doing was like smoking or like getting into bad things. And I felt like it would make me cool if I was doing it with them. And I felt like I got that validation that I never had in middle school.
We were kind of the two that were like pretty close. She started getting into some not so great things, and then she would kind of teach me some of those not great things. At the time I was like, oh my goodness, this is my big sister. We're like best friends and everything she does is fine, so I'll just do it too.
I kind of just saw what some would call downward spiral. It was really disheartening because I remember what my sister was, and I wanted her to go back to what she was, but there was nothing I could do to change it. And when I did try, I was actually kind of shunned by her.
Bad choice after bad choice. Her grades were suffering. Her relationship with us suffered.
She was really basically living a double life.
Yeah, she had created a double life, doing things on her own, hiding, concealing all of her behavior. That was going on for about 3 years.
It got to worse things, and it got more extreme. She wouldn't tell me about everything then. Our relationship kind of became distant. We didn't talk as much.
It's very tough to think about the ways that I hurt my family and hurt myself and hurt people around me. Me and my mom would fight every day. Me and my brothers, I would steal money from them. Like, we had not a good relationship. We were fighting constantly.
She turned 16, and a month later, she did something that made us realize she was going to end up in one of 5 horrific scenarios, all of which they were really horrible. In order to save her life, we had to make a decision to send her to a therapeutic Christian boarding school.
We have no choice.
We don't have a choice because nothing that we're doing is getting through. We love you more than we care about how you feel about us doing this.
And
Your
she was
life
furious.
matters to us more.
I was asking them, why are you doing this? I don't understand why you would put me here. What did I even do? And at the time, I did not understand. I was mad at them. I did not want to talk to them. We weren't allowed to call for the first month that we were there, but we could write letters. And I didn't write them for a while because I was really mad. But they wrote me every day, consistently every day. They wrote me a letter. I was the only girl there that got a letter every day. And it kind of put it into perspective for me. Because some of the girls there had parents that didn't actually care about them. And I thought the whole time my parents never cared about me. And then I was kind of seeing the difference, and I was like, wow.
One of the hardest things we've ever done as parents, and so necessary.
I didn't have any contact with the outside world while I was there. I didn't have a phone. We didn't really leave. We just stayed in this house, except when we went to church and things like that. I was able to focus on me and my relationship with God and building that. It was just my relationship with God and my family for 8 months. My eyes had been open to everything He did with my dad.
It was the best thing we've ever done for her. Mm-hmm. And within not even 2 months, she had given her life back to the Lord, and she'd gotten baptized.
I got baptized in August.
Once she came back, she was definitely changed, and it was great.
She was home for about 3 hours before she thanked me for taking her to the boarding school. I took her to dinner that night at one of her favorite restaurants when she came home for good. And she said 3 times during the dinner, "I'm so glad you guys sent me down there. I was really mad. I spent about 30 days just, furious, and I'm so mad at you. I couldn't believe you had done this. I'm an adopted child, and I already felt like I was abandoned by my birth mother, and then you abandoned me, and this was just awful. But now I know why you did it. And now I see. And I'm so much happier, and now I've got a purpose for my life, and I've got a plan."
She graduated high school a year and a half early because she set her mind to it, and she did it while she was down there.
And now she's going off to the Christian version of a gap year. Now she's in this wonderful, beautiful place. We give God all the glory because it's his story that he wrote. And I'm confident that Anna will use that to help other girls in her situation in the future.
I am so grateful to my family. They forgave me immediately. I didn't even have to ask them. Yeah, I'm just very grateful for that. We like to travel a lot.
We love to travel, and we've been fortunate. We've been able to travel with our kids since they were very young. Our kids are 17, 16, 14. They all have their third passport.
We enjoy spending time together.
I think we're fun. I think we have a lot of fun.
We get along really well. We're all pretty close.
Anna's our 17-year-old daughter.
Her real name is Mariana, and my brother named her Mariana Monkey because she would just climb all over everything and just be into everything. She was just a fun little kid.
She's an amazing sister, someone to look up to.
She's a great person. I love her, and she's very loyal.
I love to hang out with my friends, and I like to sing. I've loved to bake with my mom. It's so much fun, and my grandma. They've taught me a lot of really good recipes.
When she sets her mind to something, follows through 100%.
I graduated high school early, so I'm gonna go to a link year. It's like a gap year program. It's Christian, so I get to go to mission trips and things like that. I'm going there in September, and I'm really excited.
Brent's our 16-year-old son, just starting to drive, straight A student, incredibly serious about his faith.
He's like an immovable object on his faith. He's just very logical and hilariously funny.
He's more quiet and he's very smart. He's good at math. He's very, very athletic, very driven.
He's really smart, very smart.
I play tennis. I will be doing speech and debate this year. I might become a pastor. I might become an apologist. I deeply love apologetics. So no matter what I do, I really want to be plugged into my church.
Blake is our 14-year-old son, and he's an incredible athlete.
He is all boy, interested in a lot of different things, and it's fun.
He's super funny. I feel like me and him are a lot closer just because we're more similar in our personalities.
He has always been very active.
I like to work out. I'm starting boxing in a couple weeks. I read the Bible, I prayed a lot, and I just built my relationship stronger with God. I have a very strong faith in God. I trust him with everything.
I would say also though that we're big picture parents. So we try to parent with the end in mind.
My mom's like my best friend now. I tell everyone, and me and my brothers, we get along so well. It's all so different.
I have a great relationship with her now. It is fantastic. There is no more tension between us at all.
Things of the world don't satisfy you forever. You're gonna keep searching, you're gonna keep seeking for something that's never gonna give you enough. God will always give you enough, and God will always provide it fully for you.
In the end, everything of this world is temporary. So don't chase anything of this world. Chase everything that is eternal, which is in Jesus.
You have a huge impact on what your younger siblings do. They see what you're doing, and they're gonna do it too.
I think we did have the idea that we were not trying to bring up good kids, we were trying to raise good adults.
Bingo.
Who would love the Lord and live for him and serve him.
Take action. Don't assume this is a phase. Don't assume they're going to grow out of it. Don't assume they're magically going to wake up one day and start making better choices.
Whether it's relating to a child who's gone wayward and made some awful choices, or it's the grief of outliving a child, whatever it is, I would say a couple of things. One is to know Jesus as your Savior, but also as your friend. Lean into him because there's nothing that he can't handle, and there's nothing that he can't carry you through. His arms are big enough, his hands are big enough, he is strong enough, everything he can take you through. Your spouse is not your enemy when you're walking through grief.
No.
Or when you're walking through the difficulties of parenting. Don't let the difficulties make you two unhappy with each other, because you're the only other one who knows what's actually happening.
Right.
If you disagree on strategy, talk it through, figure that out. But this is not the enemy. I'm not his enemy. He's not ever been my enemy. And there's no one I'd rather walk through all this fire with than this one.
Yeah, exactly.
We're on the other side. We've come through. Is God going to give us more? He calls our family to hard things. He might call us to more that's hard.
this family's story is really God's hand through the tough times.
I grew up going to that lake, and so then as soon as we fell in love, he started going. And he survived meeting my giant family at the lake on Memorial Day weekend one year. That's kind of the baptism by fire weekend. I drew a chart for him. Like, here's who's related to who.
Color-coded.
Color-coded. Like, this one's going to say some things that are really snarky, but he's just joking. Like, just don't take offense. And he survived it. And we survived it as a couple.
It was overwhelming.
He did well.
God is love, and love comes from God. In 1 John, the Bible tells us that God is not only all loving, but that He actually is love itself. The heart of the Parent Compass television show is to bring the transforming love of God to families everywhere. In every Parent Compass episode, true stories reveal family struggles and how their lives were radically changed by the love of God. Parent Compass, an award-winning television series, is completely funded by people like you. If you have been touched by God and you want to share God's love to others, would you please pass it on? Jesus tells us to go into all the world and to tell about Him. With your donation, you allow us to take this television show into many different nations and in many different languages, free of charge. And a portion of your donation goes to Parent Compass Outreach to feed starving children. Your gift does so much. To make your tax-deductible gift, go to parentcompass.tv/donate. That's parentcompass.tv/donate. And thank you for sending love and hope around the world.